2021 couldn't have been more chaotic and conflict-ridden, from the politics of a pandemic, tamed even if for a moment by a vaccine rollout, to the politics of a maritime row long put to rest by international bodies, punctuated by another country's Coast Guard vessel not quite trampling on our sacred shores, but just opening water cannon fire on our boats on a resupply mission to a grounded Philippine vessel serving as an outpost in a shoal, to the politics of the presidency, the death of one who once occupied it, and the actuations and pronouncements of his successor leading up to the latter's last 6 months in office, and handing over of power to the one who will succeed him after the all-time favorite Pinoy pastime, the go-to political exhaust valve, an election. Good evening, I'm Beyond Davao. Welcome to your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual.
2022 must be the end of the COVID-19 pandemic. But it must also be the beginning of something else, a new era of solidarity.
Well, let's talk about the pandemic with our first guest tonight, National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer and Vaccine Czar, Carlito Galvez Jr. Good evening, Secretary Galvez. Well, what can we say? 2021 has been quite the year, sir, for the pandemic, for the vaccine rollout. How would you describe these last 12 months?
Yes, actually, PIA is very challenging. In fact, talagang yung pag-surge natin during the Delta is very talagang nakakahirap. But also in our vaccine rollout, nakita natin na talagang last March talagang hirap tayo. There are a lot of challenges. First challenge yung ating supply, there is no steady supply. And then also, nandun din ang hesitancy and also yung administration. But now, after looking at it, we were able to accomplish many things. First, we were able to reach 100 million jobs. As of this moment, we have already administered 106 million jobs. And this morning, I received the latest delivery of AstraZeneca. So all in all, we have already 205 million. So nakita natin diyan na unang-una napakahirap muna natin talaga ng last February na we only get donations from China. But now we are having a lot of donations, not only from Vax, but also from bilateral. And we would like to thank the WHO, the COVAX facility, because they were able to fulfill their promise. Their promise was to have 44 million, but they have already supplied 62 million. And also the bilateral partners that we have, our allies have given us more than 11 million. And the private sector this morning has completed the delivery of 17 million AstraZeneca. And also the Moderna that had been taken by the ICTSI will also be finished this month.
Sec Charlie, siguro in a way, parang understatement yung challenging. Sure, you can think of so many other words to describe what 2021 was like in terms of the pandemic and how we dealt with it, and then that vaccine rollout. And also, Sec Charlie, I really remember yung Feb and March, yung, alam mo yung parang fear, yung trepidation, takot ng tao. Ako at that time. Tapos yun na, as you said, no, yung paunti-unti yung dating ng bakuna, tapos problema sa supply, ang dami gusto magpapabakuna. And then we move to that portion of the year na medyo may supply na tayo, pero may problema pa rin tayo sa hesitancy. Hanggang ngayon pa po ba? So wala na tayong problema sa supply, pero pa po tayong problema sa hesitancy din naman.
Nakita namin na BIA is more on accessibility. Ngayon, maganda yung ginagawa ng ating mga LGUs. When we go around sa different areas, especially sa Jensen, mga different cities, nakita natin na na-overcome din natin yung hesitancy na maganda yung mga strategy ng ating mga LGU. Ang ginagawa nila ngayon is talagang they go mobile, house to house, barangay to barangay. Nung napunta nga kami sa Jensen, lahat doon, religious sector, yung private sector, kinukotahan nila everyday. So nakukuha nila yung target nila, and kung titingnan natin na ang model natin yung NCR na 106% na ang fully vaccinated, meaning na na-breach na yung hesitancy ng mga tao. Pero sa ngayon, yun na talagang isang challenge. We still have 2.5 million na senior citizens that have not been vaccinated. Kung titingnan natin sa ating record, yung in-administer natin ng 106 million, ang total ng Pilipino na inoculate natin, either first dose o second dose, is 60 million. Meaning meron pa tayong 40 million na hindi pa nababakunahan.
And they are not yet vaccinated because hindi sila mahanap or kailangan silang puntahan sa mga bahay nila. Because LGUs, for example, I think Taguig even, ang gagawin nila yung mga bedridden
Yes.
bedridden whether senior or not, pupuntahan nila talaga sa mga bahay nila.
Yes, ganoon ang ginagawa natin. Actually, nakita natin sa Metro Manila, nung una nga talaga, parang after ng 40%, bumangga tayo sa 40%, ang akala natin hesitancy. Pero ang ginawa ng ating mga LGUs, hindi na sila nag-entertain na sila ng walk-ins. Nakita natin ng Manila, yung Quezon City. So they are already entertain walk-ins. And then yung ginawa nga natin, yung National Vaccination Day, na within 5 days, we broke a lot of records na talagang 10 million in 5 days nakuha natin. At yun ang maganda dahil kasi parang sinasabi nga ng mga LGU na yung mga kababayan natin gusto nila yung iba kasi parang hindi sila techie, hindi sila makapag-register. So ginagawa nila is nag-walk-in na lang sila. And we were able to catch them, and also ang kagandahan din, naghahakot na rin yung ating mga LGU. And maganda rin yung mga dissemination ng DOH, yung mga town hall meetings. Maganda na rin ang mga result noon. At saka ang nakita natin yung Jollibee, McDonald's, yung mga private sector, yung T3, tumutulong na rin na talagang mapadami yung demand at ma-increase yung ating tatawag nating acceptance. And then also magandang ginawa rin nating strategy. We open up our demand by opening yung children vaccination na tinatawag natin for minors, MABEPEC. Na sumama na rin yung ibang mga seniors. So sa ngayon nakita natin na yung very successful tayo sa pediatric vaccination, dahil kasi more than 8 million na ang nakaka-first dose and 5 million na ang second dose natin.
In a way, Sir Charlie, parang whole of nation, I know it sounds so, I don't know, whole of nation effort talaga to, everybody coming together to help. And I guess that's also why you call it why you called it the Bayanihan Bakunahan. But also very quickly, I want to go back to the Delta surge. Like as you mentioned at the very beginning, talagang yung takot ng mga tao nung Feb at March, bumalik siya nung August, September dahil sa Delta surge, no? And there's a lot of, kanina po, you used the word you're so thankful, you're so grateful. And tama po ba, Sec Charlie? Parang a lot of people were just grateful na kahit papaano nalampasan natin yung Delta surge na yun, sir?
Yes, actually napakahirap ng Delta. Kung makikita mo ng Delta, unang-una napakahaba ng kanyang tinatawag nating deadly surge. Pangalawa, dati nung ginagawa natin yung ibang mga surge, packet lang, itong Delta talagang widespread. Ang ganda ng nakita natin, napakahirap ng naranasan natin. Pero napakaganda ng ating preparasyon kasi before I started, ang ginawa natin na delay natin. Maganda yung ating tinatawag nating border control na ginagawa ng one-stop shop ng DOTR, ng DOT at saka ng BOQ ng ating Bureau of Quarantine. At na-delay yun at prepare tayo ng mga oxygen, na-prepare natin ng temporary quarantine facility, mga hotels natin, at nakabili rin tayo ng mga tinatawag natin ng mga treatment medicines. So ang kagandahan nun yung talagang yung hindi tayo natulad ng sa India at saka sa Indonesia na nawalan tayo ng mga sanitaries at nawalan tayo ng oxygen. At least nakapag-prepare tayo nung natin sa Delta. And we are using this this experience para mag-prepare tayo sa Omicron. For over 1 month now or more than 1 month, nakita natin below 500 ang ating cases. At ang ating positivity ay hindi umaangat ng 3%. Bumaba pa ito ng 0.9%. At ang ating tinatawag nating ating reproduction rate is talaga napakababa, beyond below
the 5%.
WHO threshold.
Yeah.
So napakaganda ng ating mga numbers.
Naihabol, sir, ng bakuna yung Delta surge. So, and like you were saying, we are going to be better prepared this time for the Omicron variant, and well, everybody, fingers crossed for everyone because of what lies ahead. But Sec Charlie, I know earlier you said about being grateful, and I wanted to ask you also about what can be expected. Siguro mahirap yung for the entire 2022, but let's just say for the first quarter of 2022.
Sa 2020, ang gagawin natin talagang imamassive din natin ang vaccination. Ang ating threshold is makuha natin yung 54 million this year. And then ang first quarter kailangan makuha natin 77 million. At gusto natin din na more or less yung mga 19 million na natin nakadedicate for booster, mabooster din natin. Kasi ilang sinasabi ng mga ibang bansa na tulad ng Israel, na pagka at least meron tayo additional layer of protection, third dose, mas malaki ang protection natin. And pangatlo is ibubuin na natin yung tinatawag natin yung children vaccination, yung 5 to 11, i-open up na natin yan. Dahil kasi darating na yung mga vaccines na in-order natin ng 15 million from Pfizer. And then also, exit strategy, we'll try to minimize yung casualty. At the same time, we will save our economy. And ang ating target din sa first quarter is talagang ma-progressively open ang ating tinatawag na face-to-face schooling at saka face-to-face na opening ng higher education at saka yung basic education.
That's all very good to hear, Sec Charlie. Like you said, and like the doctors always say, vaccination, ventilation, and vigilance, and everything else besides, so that we can, like you say, reopen the economy and, yes, send the kids back to school, hopefully. Thank you so much, National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer and Vaccine SAR Carlito Charlie Galvez Jr. Sec Charlie, Happy New Year to you. Maraming salamat po. We'll be back after a quick break. Stay tuned.
Loren Legarda po.
18 years akong senador at nagsulong ng mga batas na nakakatulong sa mga nangangailangan.
Free college education law.
Para sa aming edukasyon.
MSME law.
Batas para sa aming kabuhayan.
Climate Change Act.
Mga batas para sa kalikasan at climate change. Mga batas na ginawa ko na napapakinabangan ngayon. Sana makatulong pa ako sa mas marami. Loren Legarda.
This is a paid advertisement.
Welcome back. This is Politics as Usual.
We are not moving LT57 or the BRP Sierra Madre. It has been there since 1999. It is a permanent government post manned by our personnel from the AFP, and it is there as a haven for our fishermen who would go to the shoal and for safety at sea.
However, they are vessels that are built quite big. So they are as
Unusually
big
big for a Coast Guard vessel.
Yes.
Hindi sila mukhang Coast Guard vessel.
They are actually Coast Guard because they're painted white with the stripes on it, no? But they're very big vessels, and they were former Navy vessels painted white.
From the threats of the pandemic, let's now move on to the maritime issue of the West Philippine Sea. Here with us is maritime law expert Professor J. Batong-Bakal. Professor J, kanina sabi nga kay Sec Charlie in terms of the pandemic, what a year 2021 was. Same goes for the West Philippine Sea with everything that has happened, right, Professor?
Yes, that's true. No, there's a stark difference between the government's statements and posture now and as compared to the previous years. So yes, there has been quite a marked change in the past year, especially.
Well, Professor J, let's begin with this. One of the things that stuck out for me was when we had the Coast Guard, nag-uumpisa na silang mag-challenge sa mga Chinese ships. That was in the early part, first and the second quarter of 2021. And it's sort of like, parang naging morale booster ba, in a way. Would you agree? What did you think of, those scenes? It seemed, in a way, surreal.
Well, that's true, no? But in the first place, the reaction I had when I heard of it was something along the lines of finally, no?
Yes, yes.
Because they had not been doing it from 2016, no? But it changed with the Julian Felipe Reef situation early this year. So finally, we now have the government through the Coast Guard and Navy and even the BFAR, no, really openly demonstrating that the Philippines is the West Philippine Sea in accordance with international law. So it's been quite delayed in a way, no? But at least it came at the last year, no? Of course, the reason for that we may only speculate. But I guess the important thing is that now that they've resumed it, they really should not swing back later on. No, I hope that this is not just a temporary thing for show. No, but this really has to be the permanent policy and posture of the Philippines.
Hindi lang dapat bravado. But at the same time, Professor J, I remember, parang ang paliwanag kasi ng Coast Guard at ng Task Force West Philippine Sea ay dahil dumating na kasi yung mga malalaking barko ng Coast Guard na kapag tinapat nila doon sa mga Chinese Coast Guard and those vessels, parang, medyo magkapareho na sila in a way, kahit papaano.
Well, maybe that's true with respect to the Coast Guard crews. They have a little bit more confidence that with larger vessels, they will be able to establish and maintain their presence there and will not be as easily cowed into a retreat, no, as they would be if they had smaller vessels. But the thing is, you also have to relate this to the government's overall policy and official posture in the previous years. No? So it doesn't seem like it was a case of just waiting for larger vessels. No? But you also had 5 years really of essentially silence, no, and in a way avoidance, no, avoidance of any kind of interaction. As a matter of policy. Kasi naman, even before, they did have at least a few larger vessels, but they were not used, no? And they continued to just rely on the smaller vessels that were actually fishery law enforcement vessels.
So the choices that were made, the posturing and the policy of the government, but what is it, in one sentence, what could have changed? What led to that change at the last minute, if you will, or the last year or the last year and a half? Was it because patapos na ang Duterte administration? What was it?
Well, for me, I still think that the coming elections has something to do with it. And the fact that with the coming elections, the government still did not have any good thing to show for its policies towards China when it came to the West Philippine Sea. For 5 years, they emphasized that silence and being quiet and keeping our head down would be reciprocated by China. No? But instead, what happened, they got even more adventurous, shall we say, and as we've seen in the last month with the water cannon incident, actually, parang namihasa nga sila, and they're even more confident now of interfering with Philippine vessels and their operations in the West Philippine Sea.
That incident, was like the highlight of the year, I suppose. Seeing those Chinese Coast Guard vessels, opening water cannon fire on the Navy resupply boats. When that happened, what did you think that did to the government? Because, like as you said, no, para bang in the last minute, in the last year na lang medyo nagbago yung actuations ng pamalaan, no, when it comes to the West Philippine Sea. So, is this latest incident going to push the government even further? Are we going to be more confident when confronting or facing these Chinese vessels?
Well, I think that even though it's a little bit late in the game, no, it's really finally disabused the government of any notion that China will give it any quarter no, any room to maneuver when it comes to these issues. No, China has continued to push on the Philippines, to pressure the Philippines to try to get us to abandon our positions there. No, and they basically have identified Ayungin Shoal as probably one of the most vulnerable ones, the one that they can really put pressure on for us to abandon. No? And this really proves that they will not change their strategy or their policy. They will still do everything that they can to get us out of these positions, to push us out of the West Philippine Sea, regardless of our friendliness to them.
Well, every country has its own interests, and so should we. A while ago, we used that soundbite of General Andy Centino, Chief of Staff AFP, saying that no, we are not moving the BRP Sierra Madre out of the Ayungin Shoal.
Yes, that is correct. We should not move at all. No, Ayungin Shoal, after all, is one of the places which were clearly determined by the tribunal not to form part of the Philippine EEZ and continental shelf. It is clearly within our jurisdiction, no, and so we have every right to be the ones to manage what happens there. We have every right to put an outpost there if we wanted, no. And we have every right as well to take what actions we need to protect our resources in that area. No? So hopefully, again, no, this will really be a clear, unequivocal, and unchanging policy of the Philippine government, regardless of who happens to sit in office next year.
And it's a good thing the BRP Sierra Madre is still a commissioned vessel of the Philippine Navy. Thank you so much, Professor J. Batong Baca, maritime law expert. Salamat po, sir. We'll have a short break. We'll talk about the upcoming 2022 presidential elections and the presidency when we return. This is Politics as Usual. We are on our final stretch.
The overwhelming, sentiment of the Filipino is that I am not qualified and it would be a violation of the Constitution to circumvent the law, the spirit of the Constitution. Sundin ko ang gusto ninyo. And today, I announce my retirement from politics.
The 2022 elections taking stage with only 5 months left before Filipinos cast their votes. Here to talk about the leader we need and the leader we're looking for is columnist John Nery. Hi, John. Thank you very much for being with us today. Well, let's begin with, I wanted to talk about the presidency, the one who occupied before this incumbent, President Aquino. We have to mark that because he died on June 24, middle of this year. Let's talk a little first about him before we talk about President Duterte. John.
Sure. I think that his death, which was unexpected, actually gave permission to a lot of people to embrace his legacy again. It felt like it was a safe thing to do again. This is not to say that criticism has let up, but I only want to point out that more people have felt emboldened or encouraged to say good things about what happened in the last term because of his unexpected death.
Yun nga lang, parang bang naging okay na maging dilawan ulit, yun lang naging kakamping na ngayon. But anyway, we'll talk about that in just a bit. I wanted to talk very briefly also about the sixth and final SONA, State of the Nation address of President Duterte. So, of course, every SONA naman of every president always leaves its mark. But this one in particular, because it's very long, and then because also at the very end, it was parang nagkaroon ng isang malaking event after it when you had Heidelin Diaz winning the country's first Olympic gold, no? But how would you see that sauna in relation to the months that followed that, leading up to the elections that are coming in May?
The sauna has helped crystallize my understanding of the president's approach to governance, and that is, it's really more of drama. He offers a sense of drama. And we see this again. For instance, last week when he said that, in commiserating with the victims of Odette, he said, we don't have money. Our funds have been depleted. I don't think the president really believes that there is no money. In fact, there is billions of pesos available for this from the Calamity Fund, from the President's Social Fund, and so on and so forth. But I think he offers that's his approach, that's his mayor's approach to all sorts of things. This is the sort of thing that he did when he was mayor of Davao City. He would visit, let's say, victims of a community that was razed by fire, and he would say, "I don't know where I'll get money, but I'm going to give you something." And it was the job of his city administrator and his other officials to look for the funding that will be announced the next day. Talking about what he wanted to do and so on, but really it was a political performance. But after 6 such performances, I think that many people have learned to discount some of the things that he said. And of course, after the Olympics, people were talking about other things already, including Heidelin Diaz's gold medal.
Well, political performance, you yourself described sauna, this was like, 10 years ago or so, as political theater, which is what the presidency is in a way, right?
Well, yes. We need to understand that our presidency is 2 positions combined. It's the head of state and head of government. So the head of state part, that's where the rituals are important. I mean, he represents all of us regardless of whether we voted for him or not. So in that sense, when the president as head of state addresses the nation, that is political theater. But there are certain things that need to be followed. There are certain protocols that need to be met and so on.
Yeah, certain things that need to get done. Yeah, certain things that need to get done. Now, the other political theater that has been going on in the last 2.5 months or so was the drama, the political theater that's leading up to the election. So you have Bongo filing and then withdrawing for, dapat nga VP muna, naging president, si PRRD mismo, nag-file ng senator, etc. Then you have BBM, Sara, and Bato filing, withdrawing this whole roller coaster ride of Philippine politics. And now we have the latest survey showing Bongbong Marcos clearly on top, way ahead of the pack. And there's this, this interesting article you wrote. No, what kind of a president are we looking for? And you talked about the continuity president, the change president, the career president. But in that list of yours, you have the continuity president, Bato, for example. But things are a little bit different now, no? And then you didn't mention Ping Lacson. No? So how are you going to, who fits into which bracket? And for you, what is the most important?
Okay, before I answer that, let me say that President Duterte ends 2021 a much diminished president than when he started 2021. And this is not just because of the so-called lame duck syndrome. I think it's because none of his preferred exit strategies panned out. No RevGov, no nationwide martial law,
revolutionary government
to succeed him. And he's been very candid about this, that he was not consulted when Sara decided to run for vice president. And he said, I cannot understand. She's leading in the surveys. So, it comes across as...
but you're sure he's being real about that, huh? It's not political theater when he says na, why isn't she running? No? And then tinitira niya si BBM. So hindi yan political theater. You're sure about that?
No. Of course, it's much more difficult now to separate political theater from actual political reality, because Duterte is a master of the political drama. But I think and put himself in a game which he can no longer control. This is not to discount the president. He's still the most powerful person. He has still the most powerful office. This chief executive still has the capability to execute mischief. But at the same time, we're seeing that he was left out of the decision making, and so everything else that we've seen, they were all scrambling to fit the changing script. Bongo, Bato Del Rosa saying, they asked me at 3 p.m. if I can file a certificate of candidacy, so he did an hour later. I mean, they are scrambling. So we find ourselves in a unique political juncture. A very popular president has no specific successor candidate right now. So he's thinking, no?
But at the same time, John, kasi, di ba, presidential anointments don't always work. As a matter of fact, it only worked once with Cory anointing FVR, and after that, nothing worked after. I mean, kahit mag-anoint si incumbent, yung pinili niya, number 3, number 4, doesn't always follow, di ba?
No, but that's because of the unique circumstances of the 92 elections. No, that was a very close multi-candidate election, and a swing of 500,000 votes was enough to dictate the winner. Now that we're looking at Bongo Marcos, so we've seen, I think the Pulse Asia December results show that there has been some consolidation of the Sara Duterte and Bongo Marcos basis of support. Does this mean that they will be at this stage all the way to the end? No, I think it's still very fluid. I think
kasi pre-campaign survey nga no? Pre-campaign survey pa kasi.
Yes, that's right. And then some people will say, don't believe surveys, they're mind conditioning and so on. But in fact, if they were in mind conditioning, then the results would be different in the next survey. But it doesn't work that way, precisely because, and both Pulse Asia and SWS have already written on this, there's very, very few people who change their minds based on the surveys. So it doesn't really matter.
Okay, all right. We need to say thank you and goodbye to you, John. Naubusan na naman tayo ng oras, with everything that's happened in 2021. Kulang talaga yung kalahating oras or less than kalahating oras. So, thank you so much to you, John, Neri, and a Happy New Year. We'll see you again in 2022. We've been told before, don't talk politics at the dinner table or at a family reunion or in Viber groups and risk digital warfare. But we can talk about it here at this table on the show, your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. I'm Pio Ontiveros. See you back here next Tuesday, 8:30 p.m.